Very.
Denis Burkitt first realized that there was something odd going on when he visited a hospital in eastern Uganda called Mbali. And the Indian doctor there was making rounds with him, and Burkitt in the pediatric ward, there were 3 or 4 kids with these jaw tumors, malignant ones. Now, and so Burkitt always carried his camera, was always taking pictures. And so he said, "Oh, let's get him outside under the mango tree, and we'll take a picture," because there was no flash cameras there. So, and as he said this, the Indian doctor said, "Oh, well, I've got another 3 or 4 in the other ward." And when they lined them up all up outside, and just as Burkitt was snapping the picture of these 7 kids with jaw tumors, he said to himself, "This is crazy. This is bizarre. This doesn't happen. I've hardly ever seen in England or in East Africa this. Oh, wait a minute now. In the last few months, yeah, there's been the 3 or 4 at Malago Hospital, the big hospital in Kampala." And so when Burkitt got back to Kampala, he started talking about this amongst his colleagues. And many of these kids with the jaw tumors also had bizarre tumors of the eye, the thyroid, the spleen, tumors in the spleen never occur in kids, in the testes, the ovaries, and so on. And Burkitt's attitude was, "I think these are kind of all related, but because under a microscope at different stages they look differently." Ralph Davis, the pathologist at Uganda, said, "Look, Dennis, you don't know anything about pathology at all. Get out of my lab. You're talking stuff and nonsense when you're saying that all these tumors have some relation." So Burkitt never really got any support from the other surgeons, the other doctors at Malago Hospital. You know, there were a lot of sort of strange tropical diseases. So you know, if you didn't understand one, oh well, you know, that's one of these other things that occurs in the tropics. But finally, and then Burkitt started writing to doctors in all kinds of other countries, in West Africa, the Sudan, and Ethiopia, and South Africa, and Rhodesia, and Congo, and so on, and began to get news back that, yeah, there were some strange jaw tumors and other tumors of kids. So finally he decided the only way to get more information was to organize a safari visiting a bunch of hospitals. And so he spent a year or more writing to these various hospitals and saying, "We're going to come and visit you approximately this date," and so on. So he asked Dr. Ted Williams, an African missionary doctor, and I to go along with him as a support. My job really was to make sure Dennis had a new shirt every day, a clean shirt. Anyway, we visited 63 hospitals in 9 countries in 10 weeks, and found out that there was a very strict geographic distribution of these tumors. In East Africa, they never occurred above 7,000 feet, but farther south, where it was less tropical, they weren't found above 3,000 feet because there weren't any mosquitoes there. So the idea was established that somehow or other these are mixed up with insect spread diseases. Now, there had never been a malignant tumor, any tumor of humans, that had been associated with being transmitted from one human to another by an insect. So when this, 6 months after the safari, when Epstein Barr and a couple of other pathologists, oncologists, and so on in England saw this, they said, this is exciting. This is a breakthrough discovery. This is something totally new, that there's a human cancer that is transmitted by an insect from one to another. And so 6 months after the safari was over, Burkit was world famous and asked to come here and there and everywhere else to speak. Germany and England and Spain and America and Sweden and so on. And so overnight he was world famous. The irony of it is that Burkit had never been considered as really smart intellectual doctor. When he was 17, his whole clan got together in Edinburgh and said, what are we going to do with Denis? He's not smart enough to go to university. And so what's he going to do? Well, somehow or another, he got to university and got into medicine and sort of limped through, but he was never much of a student. But I and others found out that Burkit had a unique genius to fluff away the chaff, the unimportant information, and find out the basic commonality of one thing with another and so on. So he was able to make associations of information that other people had sort of glossed over. Oh, well, that's just another tropical disease. So it was very exciting to see him. And Denis was a very humble Christ follower. And after he became world famous even after he became world famous the second time, finding the importance of fiber in the diet, it never changed him until the day he died. He was still the same humble Christ follower, and always tried very hard to give the credit to everybody else. He tried to give me a lot of credit for the discovery, and Denis Burkitt and Ted Williams on this trip. Well, we were just part of the support. We weren't, it wasn't our support. So Denis has been one of my inspirations over the years because he epitomizes what John the Baptist said to the Pharisees when they were questioning him. And he finally came down and said at the end, I must decrease, he must increase. And I think that God specially chose to give a gift of insight about certain things medically to Denis Burkitt that the rest of us just missed completely.